Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of the Marketing Gamble. In today's episode, we have the first ever guest interview, which is with another agency founder called Samuel Perez, who started his agency when he was 19 years old, just like me. And we're going to kind of talk about the mistakes that he's made and the lessons he's learned, and also what's allowed him to, start from such a young age and get to where he is now. So before we get into the interview, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out the podcast on Spotify if you haven't already. And also something to note is that I mentioned that I'm going to start uploading weekly as opposed to daily, and that is the plan going forward. I'm going to be uploading an episode every Wednesday morning from now on around 10, 11 a.m. So yeah, that's everything I want to talk about. Enjoy the interview. Thank you. Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the first guest episode of the Marketing Gamble. I'm here with Samuel, the founder of Elon Acquisition. Do you want to just give a quick little introduction to yourself?
Yeah, of course, Luis. First of all, thank you so much as well for allowing me to be the first guest. I really, really appreciate that as
No, it's
well.
all right. Don't
That,
worry.
yeah, it was great, man. I think getting to meet you through LinkedIn and everything was pretty good. Me myself, well, let me give you like a short introduction because
Yeah,
later on we can go into the specifics. Right now, my main focus in everything is, of course, helping other B2B service-based entrepreneurs and owners book more appointments, but not just book more appointments and close more deals. That's basically what my business does. And
yeah,
me, from my regard, I've been doing this now for a little bit over a year and a half, somewhere
okay.
like that.
Yeah, great. And do you want to just tell people like how old you were when you started? Because obviously this podcast, I've started my business at uni young, and it's about the lessons I learn as I grow. So how old were you when you started?
Yeah, I was like definitely young as well. I think I was 19 when I first started as well.
Same as
So I
me.
think we both very like similar ages
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the talking before. So
yeah.
yeah, I was actually in uni as well when we first started everything. Uh, let me think. It was around January. So like right after New Year's.
Yeah. And why did you decide at 19 that you were going to start the business?
That's quite a funny story because like this is definitely not the first business I started.
Yeah, same
Because
with me.
of course, what did you try before? Was it like e-commerce and all that?
Yeah, well, I always say that the way I got started was just by seeing making money online on YouTube coming up on my feed.
Legit.
Um,
I think it was making £1,000 a month. Like how
yeah,
to make £1,000 a month videos and all that.
yeah,
That's literally how I first got like the idea of, oh, I can make money from my laptop.
yeah. And then
Legit.
so what was the first one then? Was it e-commerce, drop shipping, that kind of thing?
Yeah, at the beginning it was actually Amazon FBA, so actually quite a tough
Yeah.
one to get to have your first one because you have to invest quite a little bit of money. I ended up spending a lot of money on Amazon FBA to be fair. Then I decided to try to do drop shipping.
Hmm.
And then I came about Alex Moses, $100 million offers.
Yeah. I love
That
that book.
was
I've spoken about it.
literally, I think it's one of my favorite books of all time, to be fair. Like that singular book was the one that opened my eyes to like the whole world of service, of like service-based businesses. So
Hmm.
like marketing, sales, like even accounting, like any type of service-based business. That book opened my eyes to it.
Yeah. And then that's why you decided to then start. So just give a little background. So then you went in and you started your agency, didn't you, originally?
Yeah. Originally, I started, of course, like many people probably watching this and SMMA.
Yeah.
So, and from who else than the SMMA, like I was gonna say God, but it's just like the SMMA guy himself, Iman Gatsi.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I think he made it popular, didn't he? He made it
yeah,
the
most likely. I think like he was the one that popped up first because when I first came across him, he only had like around 100,000, 200,000 subscribers. And then I looked back like a few days ago and he had like what, like two or 3 million?
he's just
Or like a million and all that. I was like, crazy, absolutely. But yeah, that was the beginning. That was like definitely the early starts of the business. Just me coming across Alex Mosi and me coming across him and Gatti as when I first started to work on this marketing agency that was at the beginning focused on real estate agents.
yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back because this is something I've I kind of want to uncover, and I'm still trying to kind of work it out myself, is so when you were looking at these videos online, you saw about the ways of making money. Do you know why that made? Because I know there are some people out there who see these videos and they go, "Oh, that's really cool, but not for me. I don't want to start my own business." Do you know why you felt that you really wanted to start your own business?
Yeah,
Difficult
to be fair,
question.
that's a really good question. That's a really good question. For that one, I have to go back to the thing of like a lot of people, or let's say I can't speak for every single entrepreneur, but I do believe that this is what people say that entrepreneurship borns from like a place of maybe like some insecurity, right there.
Hmm.
So me myself, at the beginning, of course, my family wasn't com like I'm not like we weren't completely struggling to get food, but we weren't completely we weren't definitely nowhere near like well off as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So from that and other things, maybe I was very heavy when I was a kid and everything like that. Maybe at the beginning it was more of a thing of like I always wanted to like prove myself, and I
Okay.
thought that what better way to do that than like through through like making a bunch of
Yeah,
money. So
Okay.
that idea always like it's a bit different from usual because or everybody usually says, "Oh, I wanted to have the financial freedom and all of that." Yeah, of course, I want to have that too.
Mm,
I like, but another thing that dropped me was actually proving myself a little bit there.
And so by improving yourself, you thought one of the ways was do you think that making a lot of money would have made you feel more confident and secure in yourself?
That's the thing is that back then it would definitely made like a massive difference, and even today as well. If you told me, okay, I'm gonna add 10K to your monthly bottom line or something like that, then that will still make a difference. I think not as big as it would have made it back then,
Hmm.
but definitely at that point in my life, I definitely didn't feel like I was doing the right thing for me. So that felt like my last chance of like regaining control,
Okay.
starting my business and jumping in head first in it.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of this idea of taking control, because I suppose when you go in on your own, it's like, right, now I'm in control of everything. I get out what I put in. This is it. I've got to go for it.
Definitely, man.
Yeah. So then
Definitely.
you decide to then start your agency.
Hmm.
So what was, just go into a bit more detail about that? What was that? So what were you doing there? And
Yeah, around then it was quite an interesting thing because like I definitely knew that, for example, most of us like starting our business in uni. I definitely knew that the specific uni course in which I wasn't the thing I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I had that clear from like the second month of it starting, but I still went there for like a year and a half just because like of course I didn't want my parents to be mad. It was the whole
Yeah,
COVID thing.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like well, I was doing it online anyways, but I actually ended up like quitting uni before I even knew I wanted to start my agency because I knew I wanted to do something. And I thought that something was going to be the e-commerce. So
Hmm.
I thought, okay, I'm gonna start like drop shipping. That's what I thought as well.
Hmm.
But then one day I literally had this thing in which I literally had to go to like the park close to my house and sit there and reflect as to if I actually wanted to do that. Like if I actually wanted to like going full on the agency thing and everything. Because at some point I did feel quite lost, not gonna lie. But I think the whole grind and the whole like work through trying to build this agency actually ended up giving me sort of like a route to follow, like a path to follow. So that was really good.
Give you a bit like a purpose. People normally say, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, interesting. So then, because now we're going to kind of like zoom in a bit to the agency, because obviously my podcast also touches on marketing ideas as well. So obviously you and I both started agencies, and then I think the biggest thing people always think, I don't know about you, but for me, when I started my business at uni, it was like, how do I get out there? How do people know about me? I've never done this before, so how do I get people actually coming to me? How do I get leads? How do I get
Hmm.
business? And there's all these different ways, aren't there, of doing it, like niching down and things. So what did you do to kind of like stand out and get people coming to you and that kind of thing?
Definitely. I think it was definitely it was a learning curve. at the beginning. Definitely learning curve when it comes to like, because now all I do is that. All I do is like booking appointments, prospecting, sales. That's my bread and butter nowadays. But at the beginning, I was a very shy guy. You will never see me doing a cold call. Like at first, that didn't even sound like a possibility. Let
I'm
alone
so
trying
hesitant.
to speak to someone like that.
Yeah.
That wasn't Samuel. That was definitely not Samuel. So I think the first time I actually got someone interested in my business was one day. But at this time, I was already working in like a factory where my dad was working because I quit uni. I had already started to like learn about SMA, but I was doing like the making a website, all of these things that you do in order to avoid doing the actual sales. So,
I
so
completely understand what you mean. I know exactly what you
I think yeah, a lot of us definitely know how that feels. I think mainly those of us, like for example, Luis, you and me, that is that I find it interesting as well. I find the whole like making a website and everything interesting. So that gave me even more of an excuse to like delay the sales.
mean. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I think you're so right because I remember when I first started, I I didn't really have I didn't go after clients straight away. I made my website and I made like all my documents and I made the logo and things, all these things that you look at this and you think, and like, really, you don't really need them, to be honest. Like, if you want, I like, if I could go back now and I would start my business again at uni, it would be, I wouldn't have a website and I wouldn't have a logo. I would just set up my LinkedIn page, make my offer for who I'm going after, and then just start reaching out to people and getting that first person.
Definitely.
And
Definitely, man. I think the closest thing to that might be posting on LinkedIn. Apart from that, everything else is secondary.
yeah, so then you started that, you made your website and everything, and then you eventually at some point, obviously, you must have started doing the calls and the sales. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
talk about that bit there. What took you from, because I think when you're making your website things, it's a form of procrastinating, isn't it? Like, you're
definitely.
putting it off. So what took you from that place and then getting over the procrastination to actually starting doing the hard stuff, the calling up people?
I think if I had to boil it down to one word, I think the word would be probably pain. That's what took me there. Because at some point I had the realization, okay, because when I first started working, like say in that factory, I was working around the same place where my dad was working and everything. And I wasn't doing too many like tough jobs or anything like that. But
Mhm.
all of a sudden, a new guy that worked with my dad became the manager. And that guy really didn't like me for some reason. Or at least I felt like he didn't like me back then. So he started making me go to like clean everything, clean all the machines and do like a lot of the tougher jobs. So when this happened, I was like, yes, I definitely don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I need to get clients. So I remember that same day, I think it was 2 days after. So I had already been going through this like for like a week and some days. I
Mhm.
said to myself, I'm not going to sleep until I book an appointment. So I opened Facebook. I started sending a bunch of random messages. I don't even remember what I was sending. It was probably not the best type of message, but like I was sending a bunch of messages and somehow ended up booking 3 appointments. Take into account that only one of them showed up, but ended up booking three
Yeah, but
appointments.
it's one person, isn't it? From zero to one. That's really good.
Yeah, definitely. So I think all of that happened, you said, in the span of that night. I think that day I went to sleep around 12. But the good thing is it was Americans, so, so for them it wasn't that late.
Yeah. And if I were to kind of reflect on my own thing as well, that is quite similar to me as well when I was first starting. So when I was first starting, I'm not sure if you know, but the first client I had was a family friend.
Hmm.
So I was doing a lot of work for them, and I kept doing work for them and kept saying, no, I don't want to do work yet because I'll carry on working for him because I want to make sure I get some really good results. But really, I could have taken on more people. I was just a bit scared of putting myself out there. And yeah, I was completely the same. Just, and then it got to the point where I was just sick of not having anybody. So then I actually started going like, right, let's go for it. Do you know what I mean?
You have to, yeah. At some point, it's like I think that saying that someone said, I forgot who said this, but I think like that definitely made a big difference back then. It was like you will only change when the pain of not changing is bigger than the pain of changing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think looking back now, the reason whenever I've made a big step, it's because I'm just sick of what nothing happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. It's crazy to see how we all work in like these patterns as well.
Well, no, this is the point as well, because I think we all make these mistakes. So if someone can watch this and see, look, they want to start their business at uni, and they go, look, these guys both made the mistake of just procrastinating at the start because they're a bit nervous. I should just get over it and do it.
Definitely, definitely. And if you've been procrastinating for a while, you're watching this, go do it before you actually start getting sick of the situation which you're on right now. You
Yeah.
save you some time.
And I don't know about you, but for me, it was I was sick of the situation, but then it also I got like had this realization that if I just start, I was always scared like, but I'll make loads of mistakes. And I was like, and then I had this realization where it's like, well, exactly. Think, Alex Hormozy, he always talks about how many mistakes he made. And I always think like Russell Brunson, how many mistakes he made. And all these big successful guys, they made loads of mistakes. And that's why they are where they are now. So did you kind of have that thing as well? Did you think to yourself, it's all right if I make mistakes, I'll just do it?
Yeah, to be fair, I think uh, I had this problem back then in which I tried to be very perfectionist, even though I had no idea what I was doing. So I can tell you that the first time I actually tried to get appointments, I developed a whole system. I called it a system. I didn't know what systems were back then and how to actually build one. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna send this person a text through Instagram. Then I'm gonna follow up with them on Facebook, and then I'm gonna leave them a connection request on LinkedIn. And if they don't reply within a week, I'm gonna give them a phone call because I thought booking these appointments was going to be some like complicated stuff. And I had a friend from New Zealand back then that was doing the same niche and that was working with the same type of people. I even jumped on a call with him at 4 a.m. in the morning in order to prepare for my first sales call because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, can you tell me a little bit more what to do? And at the end of the day, on my first sales call, I didn't even remember the script. So that preparation was a bit out the window. I think after that, that's when I started realizing, you know what, I'm not gonna get better if I don't do more of this.
Exactly. And it's just one of those things as well that I was stressed massively for my first ever sales call with somebody. I was like, oh my God, this is it. I've got to do it. But then I just thought to myself, like, it doesn't really matter if I make the mistake because I'll just learn from it. And then the next sales call will be a little bit better. The next one after that will be a little bit better. And then that'll be it. I'll just get better over time.
Yeah,
Um,
overall, you get a lot better.
so you start the agency and then you say to yourself, right, I'm not going to go to sleep until I get my appointments, and then you get one person to show up. So then you're doing that. And then obviously now that agency is different to what you do now,
Hmm.
because what you do now is you help people get appointments. So what what led you from going from that agency to now where you are now?
Definitely. I think what led me to that, I tried to to procrastinate this change so long. I mean, if you ask the people close to me around at the beginning, I really didn't want to make the change, or at least I tried everything before I made the change. But the main thing is that with the real estate agency, of course, at the beginning, I wasn't good at getting appointments, but at some point, I did get good at getting appointments. And then at some point, I did get better at, like you said, like the sales calls. I did get better at talking to people and closing them. The problem with that was back then I had this severe thing in which I honestly didn't like advertising at all. I didn't like the Facebook. I didn't like the Facebook thing and how it worked and everything. If I could go back there, I would definitely give myself a slap in the wrist and tell myself to actually learn how to do it. But back then, I just had this idea in which I'm gonna get a media buyer. They're gonna do everything for me, and I don't have to learn how to do marketing. I only care about sales.
Mm-hmm.
So what I ended up doing is that at the beginning, ended up partnering up with a guy in order to work with real estate agents.
Mm-hmm.
That lasted around 4 months. We signed around four different people from Dubai real estate market. The thing with that is that we weren't able to make them any money. So in terms of like, cause the guy, uh, we the guy was generating a few leads a day. the people from the Dubai place were saying that the leads were not good, and we were just like a bit lost. So throughout all of this, take into account that this was like 12 months after I had already started my agency. And usually, every time I see on YouTube, people will be like, "Oh, I made 10K after my first 6 months of starting my agency," or I already got my first client after my first month of starting my agency. And I was like, I've literally been here 12 months and I haven't made a profit.
Yeah.
So, so that and the fact that in order to get better at sales, because I thought my problem was that I wasn't good enough at sales, like why is not knowing the actual problem. And then I ended up getting sales. I ended up going into a sales job, face-to-face sales, uh, in order to make myself a bit more confident. So I went from completely not wanting to speak to people. Like I was the kind of guy that wouldn't want to ask for a straw in a restaurant. Like when you go to McDonald's, you're like, should I ask for a straw?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was that person. I went from that to having to knock on the strangers' doors to try to sell them something.
Yeah. Okay.
so, so that was definitely a drastic change. Then I went into a normal 9 to 5 in like a recruiting organization. That helped me a lot when it came to like getting confidence on the call,
Yeah.
on the phone.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I think the first time I ever decided to start making this change towards the appointment setting thing, it was more of like it was more of I was dipping my feet on the water. I was like, let me see what I can do. Let me see. I hadn't completely changed my business model, but I knew some people that needed help with their appointments.
Hmm.
I knew some people that needed the help. So I just reached out to them, and then one guy from Spain actually ended up telling me, okay, Simon, yeah, let's get started. And I was like, wait, this was a bit too easy. Like, I haven't dealt with 1,000 objections yet. Like, are you sure? And then everything. And then, yeah, like a week later, he had given me the payment and he was like, yeah, bro, get the appointment. And I was like, you know what? And the crazy thing was when I actually started seeing appointments coming through for the guy. Because don't get me wrong, it was crazy at the beginning because he was on the med spa niche.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah.
on that niche, and around the same time as Thomas Gannett got that video out as well. So it's a crazy time for us to be going into med spa niche. But ended up getting around in the first 2 months, ended up getting 29 appointments for him, and he was able to close 5 clients from those. So that was pretty nice. That was
Really.
the first time I ever saw myself making another person money.
Yeah. And so I imagine that instilled a lot of confidence in you with what you were offering to people, and I imagine that
Definitely,
then made it even easier.
definitely. It's like the whole positive feedback loop because that was the first time I actually felt like I was actually providing a valuable service.
Yes. Yes. I see. Yes, I know what you mean. And because I think when you've not started before and you're
Mm.
saying to people on a sales call, look, I can do this for you, I can do this, you don't really know yet because you haven't actually done it for somebody. And
Yeah,
obviously, if you're just starting as well, you don't want to say if I'm starting like for you, for example, with the real estate niche, I don't want to like I can't run ads and practice for a real estate company because I'm not a real estate company. I can't like practice and make sure I'm good at it. I can just learn and then approach somebody. This is why they often say, don't they, work for free for somebody when you're starting to give yourself confidence that
definitely.
you can really do it. So I agree that I imagine that when you got those results coming through, that they installed you with much more confidence to then when you were in next sales calls, you could properly pitch what you were doing and be 100% confident you could get the results.
100%. I think it was like a massive confidence boost because the first time in forever, I was like thinking, like what they say about about a skill, but it's also about conviction. I think back then my conviction wasn't as high, and then I was still confident that like okay, I can do like changing my tone, I can ask the right questions, all of these, but like am I sure I can give them results? Not really. So like, that will always be like the thing holding me back with sales. But back then, when I got that conviction of seeing the results, I think that same month I signed another 5 clients.
Yeah.
So like from like the first guy that same month, I sent another 5 complete strangers. These people I didn't know anything. I just jumped on a call with them, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm able to do this. And any objection they would bring, I would just be like, yeah, but I know I'm able to do this. Like,
Getting that
to be fair,
is getting number one, isn't it? That's that.
literally,
Yeah. So, right. Well, we are coming up nearing towards the end of the episode, though. But what I wanted to just get quickly is that first of all, I wanted to. Now, I'm not like saying, "Oh, do SMMA or do this." I just if you were going back to yourself when you first started, what would be that one thing that you would tell yourself to speed up the process so you could potentially be where you are now? Then, if that makes sense.
definitely. I'll say, uh, when it comes to myself back then, I'll say definitely I will. Good question, good question. Because I think I will do two things. Two things.
Okay.
First one is I'll increase the volume. So whatever I was doing back then, I would just twice times it by two. I think that's a very good way to learn. And second one, I will take out some time to learn as well. So definitely going through like a YouTube video on how to solve these and everything like that. I will do that as well because I think back then, if I had just increased the volume and learned more of what actually works. So let's see if I had learned more about the Facebook ads and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have speed up the process a lot more.
So take time out to learn and increase the volume because those two kind of work in they complement each other because you're increasing the volume, which means you're going to learn by your mistakes, and you're also learning, which means you can increase the volume better, if that makes sense.
Definitely, definitely. I say definitely don't do just one or the other. Like don't just send hello as a message 5,000 times because then it's not worth it. But like don't just read all the copywriting, sales books and everything and then not send your first message. I think having the easy balance between both, which for myself back then I would have said, just focus on learning on the weekends and focus on the sales on the week. I think
I like that.
that's what
That's a good strategy.
definitely.
And then, if you were to just give advice to a young person who was our age or 19, what would you say if they really wanted now to get started on their business and start making some money for themselves? What would you say for them to do?
Definitely. I say that they should definitely have a pessimistic outcome in terms of it, but they should believe that they're able to do it. But they should also not expect themselves to do it within the first month or 2 months. They should know it's going to be hard,
Mm-hmm.
but they should know also they should be focused as well on the fact that they have to become the kind of person that can do hard things.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
So I'll say focus on that mainly. Focus on becoming that person, and then slowly start to like increase the amount of work they're able to put out because nothing is easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about them putting in enough effort to break through the barrier. And like we said, get that first client, get those first really good results, and everything will go well from there.
Yeah. And then one last thing, because obviously it's still it's still a marketing podcast. We still have to do marketing tips. If someone, sorry, I just got a pop up on my screen. If someone wants to, because you're obviously booking appointments for people, how can people start booking more appointments for themselves?
Definitely. I think the one thing that everyone completely misses is the communication channel because people sometimes focus a lot on I like email, so I'm gonna become really good at email, or I like messages, so I'm gonna become good at that, or I don't like cold calling, so I'm not gonna cold call. No. What you should be focusing your communication channel is where are you going to find your prospects?
100% agree. Yeah.
That should be definitely your main focus. So the main thing I do with the clients at the beginning, for example, is that whatever niche they have, I am not gonna come in and tell them email is the best sales method. I'm gonna come in and ask them, okay, where do you think this person spends most of their day? And based on that, going with two different ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can test those 2 hours and see which one works best. But definitely choosing the right communication channel is a massively important one. Because,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if I try to find, let's say, uh, for example, let me think of a niche that wouldn't be on LinkedIn at all. not even home improvements. Let's say I try to find plumbers on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That really wouldn't go that well.
Yeah. Or I always think if you're trying to find clients for a gym, like actual people who go to the gym, you can't target that on LinkedIn, can you? Because there's no
Yeah,
interest really. You could target the gym owners if you're going after those, but you can't target the people who are going to the gym. But if you flip it to Facebook, you could look at the groups that they follow, the gym influencers that they look at all the time, the posts that they
definitely,
like, and then you can go after them on there instead. So I
definitely,
think that's a really good tip. Think if you want to generate more leads, think about where the customer is. And I did an episode on this in the past, which was the best way to think about if you don't know where they are, think about who they are. So
definitely.
if you
That's a
can
really
pick
good point.
who, if you can actually picture them in your mind, who they are, how old they are, how much money they have, what they're interested in, then you can start to work out, okay, well, they probably like this podcast, they probably follow this influencer, and they'd probably join these Facebook groups. And then you know where exactly they are and you can run your ads to those places.
Definitely, definitely, and that is such a massive like uh, advantage once you're able to get in front of the prospect at the right time as well. Because all we're doing is timing the right offer, and is basically timing the right offer to the right person.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get the right person right and the offer. We're never going to be able to control the time, but we're able to control the offer and the person. So those two definitely need to be worked on.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, as I say, for coming on the podcast and everything for the first guest episode. If people want to find out more about you, where can they reach out and get in touch? Where's the best place?
Definitely. So in terms of, I'm here. I'll be on LinkedIn as well. If you want to ask me any question, anyone wants to ask me any questions or anything, I'll be on LinkedIn. And I've also recently started a YouTube channel, so feel free to check out. I share absolutely everything. So I believe on actually sharing everything I know. So it's not like I'm keeping any secrets behind, which sometimes people around me tell me to do it, but like I just believe I share everything I know, and then the people that work with me because they know that I know what I'm doing.
What's your LinkedIn handle, just so people know exactly where to go?
Yeah, so that'll be Samuel Perez as well will be there,
Yeah,
and
and then
you
your YouTube
be
channel.
my YouTube channel right now is called Alien Acquisition, so the same name as the business.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, and best of luck with everything with your agency and things in the future. And
Same
yeah,
to you, Luis.
oh,
Thanks again.
bye. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the episode of interviewing Samuel Perez. Some quite interesting things to unpack there. And that basically does it for today's episode. I know it's much longer than usual, but I did say that the interviews will always be longer. I can't really do an interview for 3 minutes. That wouldn't be the best content in the world. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed it, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or go and check it out on Spotify and give it a follow and a rating. If you want to reach out and connect with me, then by all means go to my LinkedIn. It's Louis Adkins on LinkedIn. And thank you very much. And I'll see you in next week's episode. Cheers.